I saw a car turning left.
Motorcycle collided with this vehicle here.
Police now say speed was the main factor.
Abruptly changed lanes, hitting a Toyota Corolla.
When you ride a motorcycle, you have to be a defensive rider. You have to be a defensive driver.
So when a car is trying to yield left to traffic, that is when actually the most motorcycle accidents occur. And you'll hear something like this: oh, I didn't even see him. That's a common thing you'll hear. Look at these cars right here. They're blocking my view. So now, see this car turning left? See this car turning left? You see that? That is what you have to be careful for right there.
So notice how the first thing I did was switch my lane positioning. As I approach this intersection, this gives me better visibility and more time to react to that car that's trying to merge left in front of me.
Especially when you got a lot of stuff around you and cars that aren't moving to your left like this. What happens is you're blinded. You can't even see the car that's about to turn, right? That's why it's also important to plan out your rides, because if you know where you're at, you can be like, hey, I might not be able to see it, but I know it's about to come. For example, where I live, I know where the busiest intersections are, and when I ride my bike, I try to avoid them. Now, you can't always avoid them, but if you can, that's a way to eliminate it, is just try and not go through it. And if you do have to go through them, the safest thing to do is actually turn right, because you're yielding to them instead of them yielding to you. If that's where the most accidents occur, don't speed through them. In this situation, you hear me say this: don't even think about it, because I know what's about to happen just by looking at his car and by studying the tires. He had his tires turned in the direction he was trying to go, and he was starting to creep out. So study their tires, and if you see them creeping out, get ready to react. The main thing is thinking ahead. When you ride a bike, you always have to do that. The next most common accident is something we've all seen before. This is extremely common. This happens all the time. That's why you got to be careful ripping it on back roads. I know people love the twisties and like to go fast, but most of the time, that's where people low side their bike. Back roads are prone to bad conditions. Things like gravel. If there's been a storm or something lately, a tree could be on the road, or any type of debris. So if you're coming around the turn and then a patch of gravel comes out, you either, I had to lay her down type of thing, where you dropped it and the bike slid in front of you, but you didn't have to lay her down. All you had to do was slow down, and you would have never had to lay her down, right? So you'll hear me saying constantly throughout this video, hey, just slow down, just slow down. That's a reoccurring theme, is slow down. Another way that this can happen is if you're in a hard lean angle like this, if you give it too much throttle, what's going to happen is it's going to spin out, and then the bike's going to go from underneath you and start sliding. Do not suddenly give it throttle. Only start giving it throttle as you're coming out of your lean angle. So if I'm leaned over like this, as I'm coming out is when I want to start accelerating out of that turn. Another thing too that people will do is they'll grab that brake, or they'll double tap it and go down. And if you notice, most of these accidents, they start sliding with the bike. The bike goes in front of them and they're sliding right behind it. That's why it's important, if you notice, I'm wearing all leathers right now. So when you do crash, you're sliding on the leathers and not your skin, because the most common injury is road rash. Road rash and injuries to your lower body. So with that front brake, guys, when you grab that front brake, I'm not talking about squeezing it and gradually applying it. As soon as you squeeze the brake when you're leaned over like this, you're going down. I'm talking about grabbing it at the wrong time, especially when the bike is leaned over. If you lock up that front tire, you have about a second to correct it. But if you're leaned over, you're instantly going to go down. But if you're straight up and down, it locks up. You can also go down too. So the next thing is head-on collisions. I told you guys, intersections and back roads are not a place to play around. I know a lot of people love to play around in those twisties, man, but this is where people get hurt. So this usually happens through blind turns on a back road. If you take that turn and you misjudge it and you end up going a little too wide, if you're on a back road, well, now you're on to oncoming traffic. If you're going through a blind turn, be cautious. If you don't know what's next, don't be ripping it through, because if you go through it and you misjudge it and you go wide, like I'm over here, well, now I'm on the wrong side of traffic. And if you don't go too wide and you're doing everything right and they just happen to be in your lane, that's a possibility too. Like this right here, I cannot see what's coming up in front of me, so I need to be careful. If a car came out in front of me, I'd be screwed. But usually how this happens is you're out there riding with a buddy and you're trying to keep up with him. He goes around a turn fast because he's been riding for a while. You're with him and want to keep up, so you do the same thing, but you go into oncoming traffic. Like right here's a prime example. I go too wide, I either go in the ditch or I go into a head-on with a car, right? Ride within your limits. That's pretty much how to avoid that. The next thing is lane switching accidents. Got a lot of motorcyclists complaining, oh man, this person pulled out in front of me. I'm gonna explain that right now.
We got 2 words for ya!
Slow down, slow down. Put yourself in their situation. If you were a car, you checked your mirror, you looked over, you're like, oh, it's good. You didn't expect that motorcycle to come up at a high rate of speed going 140. They're not going to pull out in front of you.
I think I know the answer to this.
If you slow down. And usually if you're in their mirror and they know that you're there, they're more cautious because you're a motorcycle. But don't count on that. So they can be beside you and actually sideswipe you. That's why you stay out of their blind spot, right? You know, this exhaust, people are going to be like, oh, well, your exhaust, man, it's loud. It'll save your life. Loud exhaust saves lives, right? No. You don't buy it for safety. That's just a BS excuse we tell our spouse so we can buy it.
Shut up.
So I'm not gonna lie, it does help a little, but what's more important is maintaining a lane position with no one around you. So like you see this car right here, I'm maintaining my lane. I'm not like in his blind spot, I'm not anything, but if I wanted to pass him, I'm just gonna speed up and pass him.
So for you sport bike riders that like to cut in and out of traffic like this, don't be surprised when a car pulls out and sideswipes you like this.
Make sure you give yourself enough time and enough space to be able to adjust to what people are doing in front of you. We're riding our own ride, but we're adjusting. Like this car right here, look at him. I'm falling behind or I'm pulling ahead, right? I'm not staying with them. You see, they're going away from me, that's fine. But I have my own bubble right here, and I can control everything I need to right now. So this next one is pretty scary, and sometimes we can't do anything about it. And that is getting rear-ended. That's the most scary thing ever. I had somebody comment on my video, and he said, your lane positioning gives me a lot of anxiety. And I want to explain why exactly I'm doing what I'm doing, all right? And why you should do this too. So, lane positioning, guys. Anytime you come up behind a car at a stoplight, you don't want to stop directly behind them. If you notice, every time I stop, like here, I either stop to the left of them or to the right of them. The reason why I'm doing that, I'm favoring one side. So if the car behind me doesn't stop, I have a way to get out, right? Now this is most likely going to happen either at an intersection or in the city where it's busy and you're like trying to turn left and you stop in the middle of the road. God, I hate when people do that. So sometimes you can't avoid it, but pay attention to your mirrors and put yourself in a good position to get yourself out of the way if you need to, and keep your foot on that brake. If you had to take a really, really tight turn, your foot's already on the brake and your bike's in gear. But if you're fast enough, you can just put it in gear, but that's up to you. That's your call. Now, also too, if someone pulls out in front of you, now you have to think, oh crap, someone's gonna rear end me. I avoided the obstacle in front of me, but now I have to worry about what's behind me. That's why you want to practice braking and swerving, right? What is braking and swerving? Okay, you slow up enough, but you don't come to a complete stop and you swerve out of the way. That is called braking and swerving. It takes a person that's constantly 2 or 3 steps ahead on a bike. That's how you actually keep yourself from accidents, you know, thinking ahead and always being prepared. Like MJ said, man.
You have to be a defensive rider.
And he's on a gsxr, man. Let's go. The last thing, guys, I'm going to talk about is, I talked about it in the past, and that is the tank slapper. So if I do anything to cause that right there, like do a wheelie, and I come down slightly turned, it's gonna cause this. Or if I don't have the correct grip, like you're gripping super tight and you're in close like this, you can overcorrect it and throw it into a tank slapper. Because of where your hands are and how tight you're gripping it, you can actually overcorrect it and throw it into a tank slapper. So the way to avoid this is make sure you have a little bit of space in here and make sure you are not gripping super tight, so if it does get a wobble, you don't overcorrect it and throw it into a tank slapper. Because motorcycles are designed to travel in a straight line. If you do anything to throw that off, excessive speed, hard acceleration, or come down wrong on a wheelie, you're gonna get what we call the death wobbles, or even worse, the tank slappers. If you have something going on with your suspension, you have bad tires, if you have this going on, check your tire pressure. If you need new tires, get new tires. Just make sure your bike is mechanically sound. Like when I'm riding right now, this is a built-in steering damper, so as I speed up, it tightens up. At low speeds, it should not be tight. For an adjustable one, you can tighten it up yourself. Where it gets dangerous and it goes in and it's unstoppable is when you're going fast. This car just ran that light right there. Did you just see that? That's what you gotta watch out for too. Cars running lights, not paying attention, doing stupid stuff. If you just don't go fast and you ride pretty moderately, don't do wheelies, and ride kind of safe, this will never happen. That's the most common motorcycle accidents. If you guys feel like I left one out, let me know.